So, my name is Dr. Lawrence A. Rashid. I'm the African American Student Program Coordinator here at Lane Community College. And I have the privilege, I'm not going to go into his long bio, of bringing out for the second time Dr. Toldson, who's a scholar extraordinaire, who's going to bless us with some really good curated research on a topic that we don't really spend too much time delving into. So I'm not going to take too much of the time because you didn't come here to see this handsome brother. You came here to see this handsome brother that's coming to the stage. So show some love for Dr. Ivory Toldson as he comes to the stage. Thank you.
All right, good evening. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Rashid, for that warm introduction and for bringing me to Oregon once again. I've done some outstanding work with Dr. Rashid over the last few years, particularly with his work with the NAACP, being our education director. But he's someone who is really passionate about making sure that every student has the opportunity to fulfill their potential. So we share that passion. And I'm delighted to share some research with you all today in a format that I've never shown before. Dr. Rashid knows that I'm very much into art. And just to give you all a little bit about my background, because I see there's a lot of people here who I've never seen before. There's a lot of people on the Zoom. But I'm a professor at Howard University. I'm also chief of research for Concentric Education Solutions. Concentric Education Solutions is a company that helps students, communities, and schools to better engage students, primarily through the work of going to visit homes and working with students who have, for whatever reason, stopped coming to school, stopped engaging with school. And so over the last year, Concentric Education Solutions visited 17,000 homes. I got access to all of that information, and I'm going to be sharing with you all some of the findings from that, but not in the form of a standard qualitative thematic analysis that you all may be used to in the academic community. What I've done is I've taken these voices and I've attempted to bring them to life through art. So that's what I'm going to be presenting today. Now, Dr. Rashid knows that I've always been an avid art enthusiast. I have a home in Washington, D.C., where I have over 100 unique pieces of art in my house. For the most part, I've thought about my love of art and my academic scholarship as two separate things. How many of you all are into art? Okay, most of you all. All right, so many of you all may see art as something that can help you to escape from some of the things that are more laborious in your life, like your academic work or any other kind of work that you do. A lot of us don't look at art as something that may meaningfully contribute to our work unless we're working in the arts. But over the past few years, I started to think differently about the role that art could play in helping to tell a story. And these are stories that I think aren't being told adequately through our standard way of conducting research. There we go. Okay. All right, so a lot of the art that you're going to see today is inspired by Afrofuturism and Surrealism. Most of the art that you see, well, all of the art that you see was generated by me using various artificial intelligence platforms. I'm coming out with a book next year called Possibility and Statistics. Some of you all may know me by my most popular book called No BS, BS for Bad Stats. In No BS, No Bad Stats, I look at how statistics are often misused and misrepresented to tell a story that brings a harmful narrative, especially to African Americans. Possibility in statistics is a blueprint on how we can use statistics differently and better. Afrofuturism is the science behind envisioning futures for Black people using science fiction. In academic work, it becomes a useful tool in helping us to imagine a future that's better than the one that we have right now. So when you look at this is the methodological framework that I've used. And you'll see the traditional methodology that you'll typically see in research presentations is crafted by what we would call probability. All of you all who have taken statistics classes probably has heard of probability and statistics, right, or statistical probability. That's how we've been primed to understand statistics. Statistics helps us to look at past patterns and trends and predict future trends based on the past. But if you look at the past for African Americans, or the past for students who have been battling with chronic absenteeism, that past doesn't look very good. So if we use that to project the future, a lot of times we're projecting or predicting a future outcome that's not so good. The best we could say is we can learn from some of those bad things in the past and maybe do something different. But in terms of radical changes, in terms of really helping us to understand what's possible for people, we have to think beyond just looking at these trends. So in probability, we often look at risk factors and look at what the problem is. In possibility, we look at the human context. We look at the barriers, and we focus on potential and solutions. In terms of data and probability, we use it to predict risk, and we also use data to define individuals. So in the case of students, we'll look at certain numerical data points, and we use that data to help us to understand the students' risk and protective factors. With possibility, instead of using data to understand students, we use students to understand data, or people to understand data. So we weave the data into a story that helps us to create a narrative. Use of imagery, and this is important for this presentation. In standard research, we use imagery just as literal images that support the text. And so the images become kind of a sideshow to the text. And a lot of you all probably remember when you first went to college and you're reading and you see the pictures, and there's almost this implicit message that if you only look at the pictures, then you're not as smart as the other people. And if you're just reading and don't even care about the pictures, then that makes you smart. In possibility, and in the kind of research that we're doing, the image is the most important thing. So instead of having text as a central feature, you have imagery. That's visual imagery and also the videos. The core question of probability is what is likely to happen based on past trends. The core questions of possibility is what is possible if we were to make certain changes. So again, 17,000 home visits is what I looked at. Concentric Education Solutions, I worked with about 16 different districts across the nation, everywhere from Texas to Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, all over the nation, with professional student advocates that went into homes, knocked on the doors, and this is from a list that they got from the school, where the school was saying these are students who stopped coming to school, and we want to know why. And so Concentric Education Solutions went out to these homes, knocked on the doors, talk to the parents, talk to the students, talk to the neighbors, talk to whoever they could possibly get a hold of, and ask the question, why is such and such not coming to school? And log that information in an app. And then I was able to obtain all of these 17,000 comments of the students who weren't coming to school. When I first did the standard thematic analysis, and all of y'all could look at the article that I wrote on that thematic analysis on my LinkedIn page, but it was some very profound things that came up. A lot of the things that the students were saying, that their parents were saying, were really just gut-wrenching. And I wanted to find a way to convey their message without having too much academic jargon get in the way of it. I first wrote an article that just interweaved a lot of their quotes, a lot of their stories, and that's what Rashid found and wanted me to present on that. And I asked Rashid if we could take it a little bit further. Instead of me just presenting the thematic analysis, I wanted to bring some of those voices to life, so you'll hear about that. There's a lot of interconnecting factors, but in that thematic analysis, one of the top things that came up in terms of reasons why students weren't coming to school, number one was health problems. Now, a lot of us, how many of you all have ever missed school because you were sick? Okay, so everybody up in here. All right, so we understand on a basic level the connection between your health and your ability to go to school and to perform. What we don't understand as well is how your social status can impact how that health condition will affect your education. And so that's what I call the privilege gap, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We also saw transportation. Again, if you, all of us understand transportation barriers, and how many of you all have ever been, ever not come to school or was at least late because of a transportation problem? Okay, so all of us understand that. The thing about, or what I've learned through this data and what I hope people understand is that, again, your social status will determine how much of a problem that transportation issue is for you. We're also going to talk about trauma and punitive disciplinary systems, what a lot of people refer to as the school-to-prison pipeline. So let's get into our first video. So this is a video that's based on an actual case where a mother talked about her daughter not coming to school because her daughter had a chronic illness. But this isn't just any chronic illness. It was an illness that literally made her days numbered. And so the mother had to determine whether or not school was the best way for her to spend her last days and negotiate between that. So I'm going to play this first video. And I hope all of you all on the Zoom can see and hear it. If someone could just give a thumbs up if you're hearing it right, and if there's an issue, hopefully it's something that we can resolve.
There are 2 clocks in my house.
Okay. Can you all
One's on
hear
the
on
wall.
the Zoom call?
Tells my daughter Esmeralda when she's
Hear and
late
see
for
on the Zoom
school.
call?
The other is the one the
Okay.
doctors gave us.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That clock says she has until she's about 19. Her heart is a clock winding down. So my math is different from the schools. They count days absent. I count days left. This morning was a good day. And for Esmeralda, a good day is a miracle. She walked to the kitchen by herself. She had enough energy to sit on the porch and feel the sun. She laughed, a real laugh that reached her eyes. On days like that, my first thought isn't, she can make it through 6 hours of class. My first thought is, thank God. Let's hold on to this. So I do what I'm supposed to. I call the attendance office. Hi, this is Anna Reyes. My daughter Esmeralda won't be in today. She's not feeling up to it. How do you say she won't be in because the sun is out and she is alive, and I refuse to trade a moment of her joy for a worksheet? Then, like clockwork, the system responds with a robocall. Our records indicate your student Esmeralda Reyes has an unexcused absence. It doesn't matter, I called. The machine doesn't know or care. A few good days later, the letter comes. Failure to provide an adequate education. At risk of truancy. Parental responsibility. I'm trying to give her an adequate life with the time she has. What is education for a girl who might have 1,000 days left? Is it struggling to breathe under fluorescent lights, or learning the names of birds on our fence? Is it memorizing history dates, or making memories with her mother? I wish I could tell the school, send the art teacher over for an hour. She wants to paint the sky today. I wish school could be a partner in her joy, not a threat to it. I wish they understood that every day I keep her home isn't neglect. It's love. They're worried about preparing her for a future she'll never see. Why can't they help me make her present beautiful?
All right, so what you hear in that video is someone making an impossible choice. But you also hear a failure of the system to recognize the humanity of someone in their school. And it's also a case of technology getting in the way of our humanity. How many of you all have children? Okay, so a lot of you all have children. Any of you all ever got automated response to your child not being there after you've already said that they weren't going to be there? All right, so a lot of our schools are using these automated systems now. And it can be annoying when you've already called the school, you've already said they had a doctor's appointment, are they going to go to school with a doctor's note, but you're still getting this email, or you're still getting this robocall. But imagine you're getting that when your child has this chronic illness. And imagine going to a school where the school isn't an active participant in crafting an experience for that student that will help her to feel joy in these last days. So that was one of the more compelling scenarios, but we heard a lot of other things. You know, we've heard of other chronic illnesses, of communicative diseases that the parents didn't want to send their child to school to get others sick, but yet they were still accumulating these absences and not getting the kind of work that they needed. There's also an intersection between transportation and health conditions. So all of these gaps can serve to penalize students who are really need our help the most. There's also a lot of issues with mental health challenges. Mental health challenges can also keep children away from school, and our schools aren't dealing with it as well as they should. Again, this is from the voices of the parents, and a lot of the parents and the students are saying that, you know, if they have anxiety issues or if they have a major depressive disorders, different things like that, it's just really hard for the child to come to school but sometimes their mental health problems aren't being treated the same way as some of the physical ailments. And before I go to the next category, any responses from anything? I hate to just talk, and I at least check in. Mm-hmm.
Is there any feedback from the schools when presenting these issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of the schools, there seems to be this information gap between the worlds of the students and the worlds of the school. And, you know, a lot of times we're siloed. And sometimes in these offices, they're just constantly talking about, why can't these kids get to school? Why can't these kids get to school? Why can't these kids? So that becomes a narrative. And then in the homes is, why are the schools so disorganized? Why are the schools missing my forms? Why are the schools treating this mental health problem like it's something that they should just be able to overcome? And so you have these two worlds talking about each other, but not talking with each other. And a lot of times when we bring this information to the school, they're like, oh, I get it. We do have to be better. All right, so transportation challenges. So this artwork right here, and there's a lot of images that I generated like this. In fact, on my office at Howard has a collage of these images. But this is inspired by the work of Basquiat. How many of y'all are familiar with the artist Basquiat? Okay, so a lot of you all are. And one of the reasons why I like to look at, visualize Basquiat styles in the context of these issues is because Basquiat has this real messy way of bringing in all of this information. So we have, text, we have stop signs, we have transportation modules, we have equations, and the messiness of Basquiat's work can mirror the messiness of a lot of these students' lives. But Basquiat's work is beautiful in all of its mess. So we're taught that mess is ugly. Things that's completely chaotic and disorganized is ugly and needs to be cleaned up. But what Basquiat's art shows us is that sometimes the disorder is beautiful in and of itself. So when we look at the messy lives of our students, should we always feel compelled to straighten it out? Or should we understand the beauty of their world and try to accept it for what it is and help them to cope, to manage, and to fulfill their potential within their existing world as opposed to just trying to clean up everything? So this is another video brought to life, and he's going to be talking about his transportation challenges.
Why you can't just be on time? Mr. Henderson, the attendance lady, even my mom some days, they ask it like it's simple, like I just wake up and choose to be late, like I got options. My day don't start when the first bell ring. Nah, it started at 6:15 a.m., walking 5 blocks in the dark to a raggedy bus stop that ain't nothing but a pole with a sign. No bench, no roof, just stand there and pray. Cause the 7:15 bus, that's a gamble. Some days it come, some days it ghost. New driver don't know the route, just skips right past us. Then what? Mom's already at work, ain't nobody to call. So you just turn around, day over before it even start. But say the bus do come, late as usual. By the time I hit school, I get the look, like I'm lazy, like I don't care. Last week, that look came with a slip, accumulated tardies, sent me straight to the office, 3 days ISS for being late. So the punishment for getting there late is not getting there at all? How that makes sense. And don't think I ain't tried. Went to the office, told him about the bus. Lady just sighed, looked at her screen like, bell ring at 8:05, Derek. That's the rule. No help, No questions, just judgment. But Mr. Davies, my history teacher, he listened, pulled me aside after class, nodded like, "That's messed up, man. I drive past your block every morning." Said he'd pick me up, no big deal. For a second I felt seen, like somebody actually cared. Next thing I know, principal's office. Mr. Davies looking mad tight. Policy violation. Liability risk. Teachers can't drive students. So wait, my moms can scrape up cash for some random Uber driver, who might be anybody, to drop me off, and that's cool. But my own teacher, trying to help me get to school, that's against the rules. They don't want to fix nothing. They just want you to follow the rules, even when the rules are the problem.
Any reactions to that one? What are some of the things that stood out to you?
One thing I noticed is that the school is acting like it's existing in a vacuum. Like this school is somehow not connected to the real world. It's like, oh yeah, no, only what exists in school is real. It's like,
Yeah.
how does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what I noticed.
Right. Yeah, so there were two ironic things that he said in this clip. One is they're dealing with coming to school late by not having them come at all. Because you have accumulated tardies, and if you have X amount of tardies, then you get suspended. And I remember that was a rule at the school that I went to high school at. At my school, if you got 4 tardies, then you got a day off. So they're basically, you know, that's push out. That wasn't the experience of my daughter who went to a magnet school, but me going to a school that had less resources and dealt with everything as a punitive issue was, you know, a school that felt like they needed to lay down the law. The second bit of irony is that he had a teacher who offered to bring him to school. And they said, nah, that's against our rules. But if his family had enough money to get him an Uber, then he can go to school with a stranger. But he can't go to school with a teacher, but he can go to school with a stranger. And again, these are true cases. This is what we're hearing. Now, in the silos of the school, we tend to look at students like that as they're coming up with an excuse. You know, no excuses. You know, and we know that students will often, you know, make up certain things, and there may be the assumption that they don't want to be there anyway. So they're going to say anything that they can to get out of this. But recently, so I live in Washington, D.C. Any of y'all ever been to Washington, D.C.? Anybody ever tried to park in Washington, D.C.? Okay, so you know the struggle is real, right? Howard University is right in Washington, D.C. I could park at Howard University if I paid $200 a month. Because I don't go every single day, I just make the calculus, okay, I'll just pay for the days that I go, but paying could be anywhere from $12 if I use Spot Hero and park in this rat-infested alley, or $25 if I park actually on campus for one day of parking. And then recently, Washington, D.C. just changed their whole bus system. And so I saw that there was a bus that goes through my neighborhood in Northeast D.C., and it can get me just shy of a mile away from my office at Howard. So I said, well, let me check this out. You know, that's $2 for that ride. $2 is better than $25, right, or $12. So did it one day, and I was like, you know, this is okay. You know, it's the fall, so it's good walking season. You know, getting my steps in. So like maybe this will work. You know, I could save $12 to $25 each day and don't have to worry about, the time on the meter or anything like that. Then I tried the second day. I'm looking at the app, the bus supposed to come. 15 minutes past when it said it was going to come, not there yet. So it's going to come at some point, right? I'm standing there for 40 minutes, like, well, I guess this thing not coming. So I got to walk back to my house and get my car and pay the money. But I have a car. Mm-hmm. And I can afford to pay that money. Students in Washington, D.C. only get a school bus if they have if they have some sort of special need. Everybody else, D.C. solution is you get free bus. You can ride the bus for free. Everybody get the bus passes and the metro passes. But as I learned after just a second day of trying it, it's not always reliable. But very few people in that office have tried the same thing. A lot of the people in the office in DC, they live in Prince George's County and they drive every day. They suffer through that traffic and they still get there, but don't understand the realities of a lot of those students. But we hear someone talk like him and we think, oh, he's just, is this a kid being a kid? But if you actually try it yourself, a lot of times you'll find that they're not just blowing smoke. So transportation issues is a thing, and it's not just the busing issue. You have a lot of students who are walking through areas that have a lot of hazards. Everything from street violence to poor walkways or sidewalks and different things like that. There are parents that fear for their children when they're walking to school because the areas may be unsafe during certain periods. So you may have a child that walks to school every day. They walk about a mile to school every day. And then you heard of a violent incident that happened in the evening, right around the time that your child is walking home. And so now you have to think, am I going to let my child walk home? Or am I going to try something else? So these are things that parents have to deal with that a lot of people in the school don't really understand. So family trauma is another thing that we heard. We heard about the adultification of children. We heard about children having to take care of younger siblings, dealing with chronic illnesses, domestic violence situation, temporary housing situation, housing instability, homelessness. So this video speaks to that scenario.
Family factors, that's what the school calls it, on the forms. It's a neat little box you can check. It sounds so clean, like something you can manage. My family factors start at 5:30 a.m. That's when my alarm goes off. Not for me. It's for my little brother, Leo. I have to get him up, make sure his shirt is clean, find his other shoe, and get a Pop-Tart into his hands before the bus comes. Then I check on Mom. We've been at this extended stay motel for 6 months, ever since we had to leave my dad. The MS makes her mornings really hard. Some days she can't feel her hands. Some days she can't get out of bed. There is no plan B. There's just me. So some mornings, I stand in the doorway of our one room and I have to make a choice. Do I leave her alone, hoping she doesn't fall, so I can get to a geometry class I'm already failing because I can never do the homework? Or do I stay, make sure she's safe, that she has water, that Leo gets picked up from school if I can't be there? It's not really a choice, is it? And then I get this letter. Dear parent or guardian. Funny, right? That's me. It says, your daughter Maya is classified as a chronic truant. It says I'm at risk for educational neglect. They think I'm the problem. They don't see the motel room. They don't see me crushing up my mom's pills because she can't swallow them whole some days. They see an empty desk and they check a box. They want to send me to truancy court. as if the solution for a house fire is a parking ticket. They're threatening to punish me for surviving a crisis they can't even begin to imagine. School isn't a priority right now. School is a luxury. Safety is a priority. Food is a priority. My family is a priority. You know what's funny? On my little brother's school forms for the emergency contact, my mom put my name, my number, because the school knows that when things go wrong, I'm the one who has to fix it. I'm the grown-up, the 16-year-old grown-up. So yeah, family factors. That's one way to put it.
Any thoughts or observations for that one? Okay. And I'm not sure how, can the chat just unmute themselves and participate if they wanted to?
No, we're not set up for that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, all right. So,
What's in the chat?
okay.
Those of you who are on Zoom, if you put your questions into the chat, we will read them off for you.
Okay, yeah, and any comments you have on any of the videos as I go, feel free to do that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I spent half of my career interacting with migrant farm workers, and what you're sharing here is basically the disconnect with the school district, with a community that they depend on for their livelihoods in that community. And certainly, I think my experience with farm workers, migrant farm workers, is that the school district's just, it's a temporary thing. Mm-hmm. They'll only be there for a couple of weeks and then they'll go. So there's kind of no understanding of the trauma or the experiences of being a migrant farm worker and how it connects with the way systems are operating in the schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that observation. Yeah. Yeah.
Are any of these resources available for educators and administrators locally so that they can try to engage their peers with these conversations?
Yes, I'm in the process of making these resources available. There's some, things I need to do to the videos in terms of, putting my credentials on it and everything. But that is the plan to have this available. Yeah. So what you're hearing from this girl isn't it's not a rare circumstance. This happens in schools every day. And sometimes I've heard schools say, these are challenges that we're not equipped to deal with. These are things that they need social services, social support. All of these are fair things to say. A school can't get someone stable housing. A school isn't set up for that. But I think it's wrong to assume that you wouldn't do anything differently if you had all the information, right? One of my colleagues, Dr. Ashley White at the University of Wisconsin, I showed her this video, and she talked about going to school and falling asleep, and how a teacher just tore into her after class about falling asleep in class. And this was her hardest teacher. This is a teacher that gave the most work. So this is a class she was working the hardest in. But the teacher came down on her real hard. And then she told the teacher that, I'm falling asleep because I couldn't, because I spent all night last night trying to do your homework with a candle because they turned our lights off. And then the teacher started crying. Now, I'm not asking for everyone to cry, but when you get information like that, you tend to deal with things differently on a micro level. So it's not about getting them housing or getting someone's light turned back on. It's about how you deal with them. Because if someone is falling asleep in your class because they're insulting you, they're trying to suggest that you're boring, or they just don't think your class is important and they were up all night playing video games or partying, and that's why they're sleeping, you're going to deal with that differently than with a student that was trying her best to do your work with a candle because the lights had been turned off. So getting this information in the hands of people who work with students will naturally lead us to a level where we can have more compassion with some of these situations. So all of these are things that you all heard in that video. Housing insecurity, they were living in the motel, adult caregivers, our students becoming adult caregivers. And so that's what the little girl was doing for her brother Leo, shifts in family dynamics. They had to leave their father and compounding crises. So all of these are things that students will deal with. So then one of the things that emerged in thematic analysis was just motivation. And there's a variety of reasons why students their motivations will wane. So I'm going to show you all two videos about two different students who lost motivation for school for two very different reasons.
I hear it all the time, mostly from my moms. Kevin, you don't care about nothing. My teachers too, always talking about he don't got no motivation. He just don't care. Man, they slapped a label on me back in 4th grade. Special ed. After that, that's all anybody see when they look at me. I ain't even Kevin no more. I'm just that kid from room 104. You ever been in a place like that? The walls all boring and beige, nothing on them. They hand you these baby worksheets with little smiley faces like we in kindergarten or something. The work mad easy 'cause they think we slow. Ain't no friends in there, just a bunch of us sitting quiet, stuck with these labels. Out in the hallway, the other kids either look right through you or they whisper, like you invisible or something. They make sure you know you don't belong with them. And yo, to get to the bathroom, you gotta walk past the gifted class. That's a whole different world right there. Nicest room in the school, all windows and sunlight. They got art all over, science stuff everywhere, kids laughing, arguing about ideas and all that. So yeah, sometimes I bounce. I go down to Mr. C's barbershop, help out, sweep up. He break me off $20 at the end of the day. But it ain't just about the money. Over there, I ain't no label. I'm just Kevin. I listen to the old heads talking, politics, hustling, family, messing up, coming back from it. I swear I learned more just leaning on that broom than I ever did in room 104. That's real. They keep saying I got no motivation. Nah, I see exactly how it is. I see that empty room they stuck me in, and I see the bright, shiny room for the smart kids. So let me ask you what nobody ever asks me. If I'm the one who's supposed to need the most help, why I get in the least? Maybe it ain't that I don't care about school. Maybe it's school that don't care about me.
Any thoughts or reactions to that video? Mm-hmm.
I just found it ironic how, like,
Oh, we gotta get the mic so they could hear you on the Zoom call.
I just found it ironic how Kevin was explaining like the gifted classroom as being like having paintings on the walls, like this beautiful interactive classroom, when like the kids who need the most amount of help have like the least amount of resources in their classroom. I just found that interesting in how like society kind of does that to the lower class.
Yeah, that is a very important piece of our irony in that And it's funny how, irony is a artistic technique. We use irony in film and drama. But looking at ironies in our school system really helps us to learn, because that is an irony. How many of you all have seen that in your own schools, where you see a gifted class that has all of these resources, all of these things in it, and then you see a class for special education, and it's smaller, it's dumbed down, it's worksheets. So these are the kids that we're saying need the most, but they're given the least.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so I am relatively new to education and working with youth, and I worked in a program, created a program that was kind of para-education, supporting the students for 2 periods during the school day, once a week. And what I've learned is that oftentimes even hiring those folk who are going to provide that support. So we're hiring people from traumatized communities to work with traumatized students. And so for me, it was, building that parachute as you fall type deal. And it was just really difficult.
Yeah.
And so it was the education for me, knowing that the way that education is delivered in the United States, where you have this, where the school district actually sits outside of government. They're their own entity and don't report to anybody but, the folks who elect them. And so they are siloed. And so if transportation is an issue, you would think naturally that the county or the city would get involved, but they don't. And so, so there's this siloing effect where, there's just this lack of coordination, getting the student the future of the city itself, of the county itself, of the state itself. There's just no coordination in reaching these academic goals that are necessary for our society to exist.
Yeah, good point. All right, I'll show another video for motivation, but for a different reason.
It's funny, the school counselor looked at my transcript yesterday and said, with these numbers, maybe college isn't for you. A 2.7 GPA, test scores that barely register, reading level, below basic. But here's what she doesn't know. Every Tuesday, when I'm supposed to be in algebra, I'm at the public library 3 blocks down, reading the Chicago Defender from 1919, the Amsterdam News, the Pittsburgh Courier. These papers, they're fire, they're messy, they're real. Ida B. Wells calling out lynchings by name, editorials that could end careers, headlines that read like warfare because they were warfare. These journalists were investigative reporters before anyone called it that. School tells me I can't read, but I've read more about the Red Summer, about Marcus Garvey, about the Great Migration than anyone in my history class. I can't sit still for 5-paragraph essays about topics I don't care about. I'm editor of the school paper. Last month we broke a story about how the district was cutting our arts funding while the school across town got new football bleachers. That mattered. That was real journalism. My mom doesn't get it. She's on me every night. Why can't you just do what they tell you? Why do you have to make everything so hard? She works 2 jobs so we can stay in our apartment. She's strict because she's scared. I get it. The guys on my block, the ones teachers cross the street to avoid, they see something in me. Big Mike told me last week, you're gonna be president one day, little man. You see things different. They're not scared of me, and I'm not scared of them. We're just navigating the same broken system. My pops teaches at Jackson State. We don't talk much, but he said I could go there, an HBCU. Maybe that's where people like me, people who learn different, who can't sit still, who see the world sideways, maybe that's where we finally make sense. So yeah, my numbers say I'm failing, but I'm not failing. I'm just refusing to succeed at something that wasn't built for me. And one day, I'm gonna write the stories that matter. the ones they don't want told.
You like that one? Yeah, so it's interesting how you have two cases. One was identified as a student who has special needs. You have a second one who's clearly someone who is gifted, but both of them lost interest in school for different reasons. Again, these are real cases. They're not hypothetical. They're bringing these voices together. And these are both students that we can capture. These are students who, if we put the resources together and if we thought about schools differently, then we'd be in the position to help a variety of students to fulfill their potential.
We have a comment. We
Okay.
have a comment. It's okay. We have a comment from the chat. The comment is, it sounds as if schools need to provide trauma-informed training with an emphasis on empathy rather than blaming. Empathy can go a long way with motivation.
That's a great comment. Who made that comment?
Tamad.
Hamad?
Yes.
Okay, spot on, brother. We have a comment right there. And just to add to what Hamad said, the reason why I'm experimenting with this way of delivering research is because of what he said, because we need empathy. And the way that we are giving schools expert opinions and advice based on research isn't packaged in a way that really gets them to feel what the students are going through. It's packaged to make them think about different things. But if we're going to have a more compassionate environment and more empathetic environment, then we have to experiment with different ways of getting our message across.
Yeah, I would say a version of that story is my story. I graduated with a 2.3 GPA and had to fight to get accepted into a few schools, but the schools that I did get accepted into were, I got accepted into 3 Ivy Leagues, primarily because of the school that I went to, the high school that I went to, is why I got those looks. But when I got into school, I didn't flourish in the classroom, but I was the president of the student body. I got a chance to go and lobby for student fees in DC, and so like my skill sets and my giftings and talents weren't necessarily, acclimated to the classroom per se. And now I'm doing just great in the classroom. I'm back in school, but at the time it just wasn't the environment that was appropriate for my giftings. And I was fortunate in that I was allowed to thrive in other areas, which without a doubt I thrived, but just the way in which the school system was set up was not set up for me to succeed.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And one of the things I talk about in the book that I have coming up, I talk about the iron cage of the average. So schools are primed to place numbers on students' abilities. So they need something to put a number on, and they compare that number against your peers. And so that iron cage of the average means that when you're in this cage, when you're average or you're below average or you're above average, they impose their will on you. So it becomes more of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if schools were able to break out of that cage and to really look at students on the individual level, look at what students are doing that's good, not just the number that you put on them. Look at their characteristics, their motivation, the activities that they're in, the leadership that they convey, the books that they're reading outside of school. All of these things are important. I had a similar situation to that kid too. I had a 2.7. He and I had the same GPA, and I also scored low on a lot of those reading standardized tests. but I was reading books outside of school. And just like him, if you just give me an essay of something I don't care about and ask me to answer a whole bunch of questions about it, and you're telling me that this is just a standardized test that's not going to determine my grade or whether I'm going to graduate or different things like that, you're just collecting this information, then it's hard for me to put that energy into it. But if you give me the autobiography of Malcolm X, I'm putting energy into that because that's something I cared about.
I just want to make a correction from the chat. I want to thank Dwayne Thomas for that last comment. And then I have a question of my own. Going back to the child with the IEP, so a lot of children, this was my experience working with young Black youth particularly, start to identify themselves by what they've been diagnosed with or what's in their IEP, and so expect that you will have a lower standard for them. So how do you walk the line between acknowledging unique learning needs in children and allowing them to think that it's crippling so that the expectation shouldn't be there for them to succeed?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you know, it's I kind of had an epiphany when you said that, because I talked about that second student being based on me, but the first student could be based on me too, because in the fourth grade I was assigned to this slow learners group, and I was assigned to that group based on my attentional challenges back then, and I had a good friend, and you know, we were reading about Greek mythology, and we were making little characters out of our pencils, and you know, creating stories and things like that. I was creating stories out of numbers. We got into minerals and rocks at a certain point, so we had a book on rocks and was picking up rocks. And so we were doing all of this in the backdrop of our school. And then I told you all I had difficulty, you know, reading on pace with everybody else. So I was actually assigned to a group. And it wasn't until my mother took me out of that school, and there was a teacher that you know, she thought I was gifted, but I was coming from a school that thought I was a slow learner. So I had to balance that. But that teacher that thought I was gifted saw something beyond what that other teacher saw in me. So the answer to that question is, when we have someone that young that's trying to figure things out, and there are a lot of things that we can understand about that child that can help us to understand what their strengths are and what their needs are. And I think to put a label on a child that young, especially with the kind of information that we're using to put that label on them, it's always going to cause more harm than good. A lot of times we impose a lot of things, and it's really more about order and control. It's hard for a teacher who's managing a certain curriculum to control a student that wants to learn about Greek mythology when the state is telling you to teach them something else. And so if them learning about Greek mythology is interfering with the curriculum that the state assigned you, then you see that child as a threat. But that's not the child's problem. That shouldn't be the child's problem. That's the school's problem, and something that we really should fix. So I think the whole concept of labeling and you know, putting children in the categories is problematic. Now, a lot of children do need IEPs. I've seen situations where a child has an individualized learning plan, individualized educational plan, and they're at a good school that's following the plan, and you're giving that child agency. You're using it to empower that child. So you're telling this child, this is how you learn, and these are things that you can do to spur your learning, and these are things that the school is going to do for you in order to support your unique learning style. That's how it's supposed to work. But when you're using it as a form of labeling and saying, these are the kids that's struggling, these are the kids that are doing well, then we have these problems.
Some of the questions are coming directly to me for some reason. There's one that goes back a little ways. Are you aware of any school districts that have been able to account for these circumstances?
Yes. Yeah, there are, well, I shouldn't say districts, but there are certainly some individual schools that have been able to account for these districts. I've worked with a lot of districts. I've worked with a lot of schools. I can say that I've never worked with a district that didn't have any schools that were doing that was punching above their weight. But I also can't recall working with a district that didn't have a school that just needed a lot of help. So there is some normalization we need to do across the system. And towards the end, we'll get into, briefly, some solutions. I'm going to show another one, and this is a student that's involved with the juvenile justice system.
Probably got a file on me at school, a thick one. It probably says chronically absent, at risk, engagement deficit, got all the labels. They probably think they know my whole story from that one folder. They know I got picked up last year, shoplifting. Stupid, I know. So that's in there. Probation officer, court dates, more missed days, adds up. They see the pattern. Boy in trouble, boy doesn't care. Simple story, right? But that file, it don't have a column for my mom's lupus. It don't track the days she can't get out of bed, and it's on me to get my little sister ready. Make sure there's something in the fridge. It don't track the shifts I work at the warehouse, off the books, to help keep the lights on. That money don't show up in that data, but the lights do. The real story ain't even in the file. Last spring, walking home from the corner store, wrong place, wrong time. Two dudes started arguing, and next thing I know, I'm on the ground. Got shot. Just a graze on my leg, but it changes things. After that, sitting in algebra class, it felt stupid, for real. Teachers talking about X and Y, and all I can think about is how the bus stop is on that same corner I got shot, how I gotta walk home in the dark, how my PO says one more wrong look and I'm violated. You start connecting the dots. The school sends the truancy officer who looks just like the cop on the corner, who looks at you just like the dude who pulled the trigger. The whole game feels rigged. They tell you come to school, get an education, it's your path forward. But from my front door, that path looks a lot like a trap. So yeah, I stopped coming. They got all my numbers in that file, all the days I missed, but they don't have the reasons. They see a kid who doesn't care, but they never asked what it cost to care in the first place. So the question ain't why is Jamal absent? The real question is, why would he show up?
All right, so some bars at the end of that. So first thing is they never ask what it costs to care. What does it cost to care? Because we always telling children you need to care, but we never ask the cost. And so he's talking about the cost for him. And then that last question, you ask why am I not coming to school, but you don't ask why should I come up? Why should I come? And those are two profoundly different questions. You know, why is he not coming to school? Why is he not coming to school? Why should he come to school? You know, like you're going to fundamentally treat those two questions differently. Why should he come to school helps us to focus on what we could be doing better. So I'm going to play one more video, and this is a video from someone at the school who is thinking about, how to do things differently. And before I show that one, I think this is an important slide to show the privilege gap. And I talked about this in the beginning, but I think one of the things that makes it difficult for schools to do the right thing is this privilege gap, because schools are run by the middle class and the upper middle class. And there are certain things that we do in the context of having resources that we assume is the thing that you should do. We don't think about the ones who are just incapable of doing those things. We just dealt with this shutdown in the government, and the sticking point was over healthcare, these healthcare benefits and subsidies. And there are people who are paying $300 a month right now for health insurance for their families, and that's all they can afford. But without the subsidies, that premium may go up to $1,000. So if they can't pay that and they don't have health insurance, then there's going to be this compounding effect on any health issues that's going to happen. But a lot of the people in the school, they have health care covered by their school, and so they're not thinking about these things in the same way. So it is very important for us to put ourselves in the students' world and really understand things from their vantage point, not our own vantage point. So we need to forge partnerships, and I won't get into this slide by slide, and I can share these slides with everyone who participated here, everyone who participated in Zoom. I can't share the videos like I share the slides because is way too big, but I am going to find a way to, in the near future, find a way to put the videos up for you all to be able to use those videos independently. But I can get you the slides in the form of a PDF. So this will be the last voice that we hear. This is someone who is advocating for the students.
Used to think attendance was about choices. Then we listened, really listened to our students and visited homes. After hearing story after story, it's clear. Attendance is a symptom, not the disease. Threatening letters and court dates didn't fix missed buses, caregiving, or panic attacks. They just added stress to families already carrying too much. So here's what changes, starting now. When the bus doesn't show, we don't threaten families. We fix transportation. We're launching live bus tracking, a backup driver pool, and a simple rule. No bus, no penalty. If we can't get you there, we won't punish you for not being there. If you arrive late, you shouldn't disappear in the system. We're adding a Fix My Attendance station and student portal button so you can scan in, explain a delay, and get it corrected the same day. We'll believe students first and verify fast. Caregiving is not defiance. We're offering flexible start times, caregiver passes, and a dedicated family liaison to help arrange rides, coordinate pickups, and connect to community support without punishment. Health and safety come first. We're opening a wellness room and telehealth with the nurse and expanding restorative supports for bullying and conflict. If you need a quiet arrival or a trusted adult to check in with, you have that. Life isn't one size fits all. We're building hybrid pathways, quality remote options, credit recovery, and acceleration, so a doctor's appointment or flare-up doesn't erase a whole day of learning. We're changing what we measure, not just absences and detentions, but barriers removed, rides provided, appointments kept, counseling sessions delivered, families housed. That's how we'll hold ourselves accountable, and we're not doing it alone. We've brought in partners, transit, health clinics, housing support, legal aid, because school can't solve homelessness or healthcare gaps by itself. We're a hub, not just a hallway. Our staff will get the tools they need, trauma-informed training, resource navigation, and de-escalation. We're moving from gatekeeping to guidance. To our students, we see you. To our families, we're your partners. To our staff, you have permission to lead with care. When we remove barriers, students show up, because school becomes part of the solution, not another problem. This is how we move from punishment to support, together.
Okay, so that's a snapshot of what we can do, what's possible. Some schools are already doing that. The things that she mentioned aren't things that we just made up because we heard from these students. In addition to hearing from students, we also heard from schools that are doing it right, but they're too far and few in between. So all of us have the responsibility to really make sure that we are serving the interests of all of our students. So I want to, in conclusion, express my appreciation once again to Dr. Rashid and the Lane Community College community for inviting me into this space and allowing me to be creative. This is the first time I've presented research in this fashion. So any feedback you have for me, you don't have to give it to me now, but send it to me. Be gentle. But I think, with all the emerging technologies that we have right now, it's up to us to use this technology in a way that augments empathy as opposed to just augmenting our cognition. So thank you all so much for sharing this space with me. And I think we're going to spend about 15 minutes with our Q&A, with a moderated discussion.
Let's give Dr. Toldson another round of applause, please, everybody. So I like to think, first of all, I got to thank our sponsors. I didn't do that. Thank United Way for the grant that we've been able to get to do this work, particularly around African American males. But this topic reaches far and wide, not just African American males, who we both have a proclivity towards. Of course, he's the scholar, rock star. So we're just going to get right into it. And I want to thank my students for coming out. I know you didn't come out just because of the topic. You came out for the extra credit. But I hopefully, in addition to coming out, that you took away something from this conversation. I know I did. So I'm going to try not to be too professorial. And I know some of my students are like, well, you do it all the time with these big words and concepts that we don't know what the hell you're talking about. But I'm going to go there again. Because when I see these videos, I'm thinking about the concept of PVES. And I know you're familiar with Margaret Spill's Vincent's work. And so PVES is a long theory. It stands for Phenomenal Variant of Ecology Systems Theory. And when I see that, we're talking about protections, right? And so when I hear and see a lot of these different videos, that's what comes to mind. The young people that have to navigate certain communities, right? And they put up these protective, it's kind of like a cool pose. They're putting up this front, right? But they have to do that to navigate their terrain. But once they get to school, it's still on. Mm-hmm. And so when people see that, they're obviously what? They're scared, like, oh my goodness, this menacing person, why are they looking that way? But we don't really unpack, like, why are they doing that? So can you speak, did that kind of come up a lot within some of these, the research and stories you got? Like, again, I heard it specifically in one, but did it appear in nuanced ways, like that kind of protective factor that people had to, put on just to navigate, what they're navigating?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I want to shout out Beyond the Bricks documentary filmmakers, Derek Cohen, Oida Washington, because they brought me into the documentary film space early in my work with doing Black male achievement. Mm-hmm. And it was finding the power in those clips as I was presenting really inspired me to take on this project where we have the technology to do it. But in terms of how these children are navigating the system and the flexibility that they have to have, The way in which they have to speak different languages in different environments to do what we call code switch. The exterior that they have to have in order to survive, and how that exterior also comes into the school. And I don't think it comes into the school because they don't know how to turn it off. I think it comes into the school because they also feel like they're in danger in that environment too.
Well, that leads me to another question. I want to get to our audience, but I mean, you teed me up, Dr. Toldson. I don't think we unpack this. We are often very punitive towards the babies and the families that are not, coming to school, right?
Yeah.
But did we ever think about this? What if school is the problem itself? What if school is the actual deterrent? Once they get there, they're getting, and I heard you say this in the presentation, they're getting pushed out indirectly. So what if that environment, and I think that's something that we don't want to grapple with, because then we have to put a mirror in front of ourselves and kind of do that work, which the advocate was talking about too.
Yeah, and schools in general aren't doing the wrong thing. I don't want to generalize these problems to all schools. My son is at a public school right now. My daughter graduated from a public school, and I think both of those schools are serve their interests well. But schools that serve predominantly low-income children, I think we could generally say that they aren't getting it right. And I think it's a reflection of society and how we treat those who don't have as much and who needs the most help. The punitive way that a lot of these schools feel like they have to construct their environment. My daughter's school just wasn't like that. At my daughter's school, you didn't get accumulated tardies that led to suspensions. You didn't have strict dress codes. I remember talking to a child that had gotten sent home, a high school senior, actually, who got sent home from a public school in DC because he was wearing his uniform shirt with blue jeans. And I asked him why didn't he wear the uniform pants? And he said, man, I only got 2 classes I need to graduate. I just come to take 2 classes. Why are they trying to force me to wear uniform pants just to come to take 2 classes? Which made sense to me. But I have a daughter who went to a public school in the same district, but it happened to be a magnet school. He went to, this kid is going to a school that's just about all black, in an all black neighborhood. But in my daughter's school, I see kids coming with pajama pants and a Starbucks cup. And so you have 2 schools in the same district that's treating students fundamentally different. And it's because, as a society has taught us that certain segments of the society need more punitive measures, and other segments of the society have earned their right to more flexibility and autonomy. And that just doesn't serve a large group of our students well at all.
No, absolutely. This is the last question I'm gonna get to you all. We're in an institution of higher learning. You work at HU, Howard. Shout out to Howard, DC. And I would be remiss if we didn't shout out them Cole brothers of 1906. So this is a good old brother right here of my fraternity, A Phi A. So we just want to shout that out. I'll be remiss if I didn't do that. But anyway, there's a lot of haters out there online. But anyway, with that being said, we both work at institutions of higher learning. Could you elaborate on the correlation of, because primarily we were talking about babies in K through 12 in these videos, right? But can you convey like the correlation and importance of getting ahead of the ways in which we kind of monitor and report attendance and how that potentially impacts us here in post-secondary education?
Yeah, I think the commitment to caring is very important. School attendance is important. I don't want to minimize that. But we do tend to treat attendance differently when we have an understanding of the cause. And so a lot of times, us as professors, if we know a student is, has a serious health problem, we accommodate that student a lot better. But if we know the student is just blowing off our class, a lot of times we'll be more punitive. And there's nothing wrong with that. But where it becomes problematic is if you don't really understand, if you don't take the time to understand these very complex issues. And also understand that we're in a new environment now and there's a lot more ways that we can give students access to material that they couldn't have gotten before. So it's up to us to be more flexible, use the tools that we have, the technology that we have to make sure that everybody is getting the information. I also think that just looking at us being in higher education, we have to think about how we're teaching our students also, because aside from just the attendance issue, there's an issue of us using research as a tool of categorizing and predicting and asserting control. And that mentality is also driving a lot of these problems and interfering with our imagination and innovative ability to deal with these complex problems in a more sophisticated way.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope students who are listening, especially students who are here or who are online, really heard what Dr. Toldson said as far as the communication, because we're in a position to support you, but if it's unbeknownst to us, then it makes it kind of difficult for us to do those type of things. We have some of our colleagues who are a-holes, right? There are none here, but maybe out there in other places, they're that. But when you have people that really want to see you win, you have to do your job as far as communicating so that we all could do what's in the best interest of you to make sure you succeed. So I think there's questions out there. So my lovely wife is saying yes. So let's, do you have them online or? Okay.
Mostly comments.
Okay. We're here for those too.
Okay, well, here's one of the most recent ones. I'm a doctoral student focused on increasing literacy engagement through transformative materials aimed at AA males, and these clips were encouraging. Also, the concept of sharing info without all the academic lingo is refreshing. Thank you, Dr. Toldson.
And do you have the name of the person who?
First name, Alexis.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Alexis.
And should I just keep going? Okay, someone named Anthony. I grew up in a working class Oakland, California household, and my mother worked to make sure everything was there. I think the public education system is too generic to really be effective and doesn't really offer opportunity in passions you have. Also, it doesn't provide you the opportunity to understand your passions. I tried college 3 times before this time.
Okay.
And then there was a comment. It sounds as if schools need to provide trauma-informed training with an emphasis on empathy rather than blaming. Empathy can go a long way with motivation.
And that was Hakeem, right? I think that one sounds familiar. Oh, okay. All right, so similar. Yeah.
Okay. reference to one of the earlier videos. I understand her pain. My dad was an alcoholic, so before I could get a ride to school, I had to get him up, clean up his messes, cure his hangover, dress myself, and walk the dog, and I was still late. I had detention every week. I was truant. In high school, I was on ISS because I missed 14 days of school in 1 month, and the vice principal asked me why versus how can we help.
Wow. And who was the one who said the last comment?
Jay LaShawn.
Okay, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And while you're looking at the others, you know, when I listen to Jay LaShawn's story, and I don't know if it's a woman or a man right now, but I know that they tuned in. They logged on to this, and so despite going through what they went through, they're at a place where they're engaged with the higher education community and getting skills that's going to help them to help others. And a lot of us in here have that story. But one of the things that I've noticed is that when a lot of us make it, you know, when we get our PhDs and when we're in the position to do research and to teach others the right thing to do, a lot of us hide our stories. Mm-hmm. And I think us hiding our stories because we want to fit in with the ivory tower, you know, fit into the ivory tower better, that denies people the ability to learn from perhaps the most important thing that we have, which is that lived experience. So I just want to encourage that person not to hide that story because, you know, if you go into school districts and help them to, you know, reach these students, that story is going to be more important to you than anything that you'll learn from me in the classroom.
You know, absolutely. Shout out to that student. That's one of my scholars in my Black Belt Studies course. So definitely want to give him a shout out for that.
Couple of short ones. This one came in at 6:15. Charisse says, schools don't seem to have the capacity to have a humane approach to kids. Disciplinary methods are their only solution. And then this one goes back. This was the first one of the first ones that came through. The Lane Transit District bus route to LCC often ignores people at stops along the way, on 30th, etc. Known issue. No joy on a solution. I've seen that happen years ago when I was riding the bus. Okay, we've got a new one that just came in from Tamad 11, I think.
This would be Dwayne Thomas.
Okay. It is essential for schools. It is essential for school systems to have a structure in place to addressing student well-being and developing partnerships with community agencies to removing barriers to student achievement. There are different tiers of chronic absenteeism. Dr. Toldson, has this been a topic of concern in any of your projects to assist various institutions with addressing the issue?
Yeah, at Concentric Education Solutions, we talk about those different tiers, and you know, that's the most important thing, getting to the root causes and working directly with school districts and working with the schools so that they understand the nature of these problems and they can get out of this one-size-fits-all approach to dealing with this and to increase their level of empathy in dealing with this.
So we definitely want to hear the people, our friends online. After this, we definitely want to hear the people in the room. I'm looking at some of my colleagues as Dr. Toldson was speaking about that experience, and I'm looking at my colleague well, he's still my colleague and mentor, even though he's kind of retired. Mr. Garcia, who kind of always talks about like diminishing experiences and everything. So we definitely want to hear from the people in the room because you all are in the space. So definitely after we hear from the people online. So definitely want to hear your questions.
I just have 2 additional comments from online to add to the ones that were read. Andrea says, the 4J school district eliminated school buses for high school some years ago. Children too young to drive are expected to get to school. The LTD buses drove right past my kids at the stop over and over. And the attendance robocalls were the bane of my existence. I think this echoes another comment and also some of our staff's direct experience with Lane LTD. Actually, I think you read Alexis's. So I think that's my last one. Okay.
So we got some people in the room, some more of our scholars, local scholars and community members. So yeah, I see the hands coming up. This is great as they're working on their extra credit assignments.
I just want to go back to the last video that we saw. I liked how the woman in the video pointed out how life isn't like a one-size-fits-all, and I think that's the kind of mentality we need to go into schools as well. Like there's things like obviously like GPA is just like a metric system, but like assessments, assignments are all the same for everybody, even though the different like circumstances and things like that. And I just think that going with that approach into schools would help a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And then in school we like to use norm referencing a lot. So we look at a norm and we reference people according to that norm, and I think that's not an ideal way to look at a student, to compare any of you all against someone else to understand your worth. I think it's an unfair thing to do. So I like self-reference measures. So, how are you doing today versus how you were doing yesterday is more important to me than how you're doing compared to the person you're sitting next to. How are you doing compared to where you want to go in life? If you want to be one thing, you need to be doing good in one subject. If you want to be doing something else, you need to be doing good in a different subject. So if we were able to individualize things, like you said, understand it's not a one-size-fits-all and everyone is different, then I think we could treat people with more humanity.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you for your lecture, and also I really enjoyed the anecdotal way in that you presented this information because it brought up a lot of my own, high school experiences, and some of them not directly mine, but like from friends and stuff. And so it just leads me to think like there's so many issues that need to be addressed. So like how do you prioritize what needs to be addressed first to then have kind of like a domino effect to helping everything else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when you think about what to focus on, that could be overwhelming and maybe not even necessary. I think if we focus on ourselves and being the best person that we can be, and just thinking about what that looks like, because, if you went to a school with these issues, it's not up to you to go back and fix those issues. But just as someone who cares, you might want to reach out to the school and let them know how you're doing right now, and let them know if they ever wanted you to come by and talk to some students, you'd be happy to do that. If all of us just did these simple things like that, I think that would be enough. I don't think you need people to go in and swoop in and say, I want to be the one that fix housing. I want to fix food insecurity. There's going to be some people who do that, and that's their career, that's their passion, that's a project that they decide to focus on. But what we need is not more people like that. We just need everyone to be the best humans that they could possibly be. and to just give back in the simple ways. If all of us just did simple things to give back and let other people know that we care, then I think we'd solve a lot.
One thing I was thinking of when I saw this whole lecture was, what is the point of school? Because to me, the point of school is to have people learn, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like a lot of times schools, what they think the point is to weed out those who are the best and get the things that because they want them for like a job or like something like that. It's like, who do we want to do the things we want to do instead of how do we help everybody do things?
Yeah.
So that was just a big thing I was thinking.
And that's an important critique, and you're right. I don't know how much schools realize they're doing that. I think it's more reflexive thing that they do. But one of the things I wrote in my last book, I wrote that the most important thing that schools could do is to reveal a strength that a student has that they didn't know they had. But unfortunately, schools are best equipped at exposing weaknesses that students have that they didn't know they had. And so if school is where you come to learn that you're a slow reader or that you have a short attention span or you're not a math person, but you're not learning anything good about yourself, then you're going to have that motivational crisis like I just talked about. And I share, what I just shared with you, which is very similar to what you shared with me. But I share this with schools all the time, and they agree. And they know that they should be doing something different. A lot of them are stuck with, at the point of how. And if they really work towards it, they could, but a lot of them just hadn't realized that they haven't thought about it in those terms. They're, when you look at institutional theory, there are these isomorphic pressures. Pressures are placed on institutions, and Lane Community College, has isomorphic pressures. Howard has isomorphic pressures, but these pressures, they show you certain standards, and you just start working to meet that standard without really thinking about it. So if the standard is 75% of the students at your school are scoring and are above basic, are proficient in mathematics, then you start to focus on that, and then you get into that weed out like you talked about, because you're looking at the students who are below basic, and they're messing up your program. These students could have all kinds of other skills. These students could be doing any number of different things, but you get laser focused on that because of these isomorphic pressures. So a lot needs to change.
Thank you for this. I found it very interesting. I'm right now in school to be a school counselor, and so I was kind of looking for maybe more of, right now we're focusing a lot on research and data. And I thought you had mentioned something about like being able to use that differently, to be able to focus on things differently. And I'm just kind of wondering what data is out there that shows that punishment has ever done anything beneficial for anyone, versus like when you're talking about more empathy, like do we have some good data showing this versus this?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of good data out there that says that punishment works. Now, if you, from a counseling standpoint, there are two fundamental theoretical orientations that drive certain practices, and punishment kind of comes from the behavioral perspective. So you punish behaviors that you don't want, you reward behaviors that you do want. So it's this basic type of thing. And in correcting certain small behaviors, It works in laboratories. If you want to train a dog, that's how you do it. But humanistic approaches, this is the person-centered approaches that's pioneered by people like Carl Rogers. They talk about the environment, cultivating that environment and having that empathy and those types of things. And so getting schools to move away from this punitive approach that can work with correcting some immediate bad behaviors to getting them to more a humanistic approach, which can really cultivate the type of people that's going to push them to their best. That's fundamentally what we're trying to change. Continue to learn about the philosophy that I believe in and try to push your schools to meet that philosophy.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I found it very innovative in the way you presented the issue, so I really appreciate the time for coming over here and sharing your expertise. Going back to a statement that was made earlier about what's the purpose of education. So it's something that's really intrigued me for a long time. I'm a student of a history of education in the United States. And given all that I've known and been exposed to, I'm not convinced that it is intended for all of us. And I think the way I phrase it, the language that really resonates with me more, that explains to me more, is not equity, it's not multicultural, it's not cultural belonging, but it's colonization. So my starting point is that these spaces that we call schools are colonized institutions. It's a dynamic that has been in this land called the Americas since the arrival of another Western system of knowing. And there's authors there who talk about the sorting machine, about the role of capitalism and so forth. So that's my dilemma is that I'm not convinced yet that the schools were really prepared to treat all of us as students, as learners, based on our gender and ethnic identity and so forth. But I do want to say that you mentioned about we need to determine the cause of these issues. And I think what my challenge is that we have adults making choices for kids, for younger people. And so we need to really, the cause is coming from the stories of the folks we want to include in this project here. And I think adults aren't courageous enough to listen to those stories. And that's what I try to do here at Lane, is introduce the stories that students have shared with me and to my supervisors and administrators to see if there's any change. But again, I'm back to the space about do I want to diversify a colonized environment? I think we need to start with the point that it shouldn't be a colonized environment to begin with. And that's my challenge as an educator, as a learner. How do I go about engaging in that kind of thinking, knowing that I'm not trying to put marginalized students into a system that's is not set up for caring in the context that you're sharing here. It's not set up for love, for humanity. It's got a different purpose. Yet I think we're kind of misguided by saying, yeah, schools are for everybody. And we have these mission statements and diversity statements. And as you began your presentation tonight with the stories that were shared, I said, well, there's a disconnect between our mission statements and diversity statements in our daily operational practices.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't dispute anything that you said. Schools are set up for the purposes that you mentioned in this colonial system. I will say that all of the people that I work with at the school districts, and that's everyone from the superintendent's office on down to the teachers, none of them that I've worked with are conscious of that system. They're not operating consciously saying that, I want to weed out a select few good students and push down the masses so that they join our labor force. And I believe that they, I believe that they're not consciously doing that. I think that they want the same things that I want, but they're stuck in a lot of different ways. And so my challenge isn't so much, whether we put children into that system, because children are already in that system. I don't see taking them out of that system. But my challenge is, how do we get the ones who want to do the right thing to move in such a way where they're forcing the system to do the right thing? Because if all of the ones that wanted to do the right thing joined together and exposed certain things and demanded certain things and refused to do certain things, if all of them did it, then it would completely disrupt this system. But how do we do that? And I don't have the answer to that. I can go around and I can talk and I could, shift perspectives, here and there. But I'll keep doing that. But the same thing that frustrates me also gives me hope. I will say that. Because I know that there are a lot of people who know the right thing to do. They're just trying to figure out how to do it in a system. And just like those kids are going through things that they don't understand fully, these people working within the system are doing things that I don't understand fully. Last thing I'll say is, another thing that gives me hope are these pockets of things. I mean, I went through that same system. And I think it was a little bit worse in the 90s than it is now. We didn't even have the language to call it, these things now. But, it were these individual teachers that recognized individual things in me and steered me towards things. And they did things outside of their job description that led me to what I am right now. So even if we got more of those teachers that just go a little bit rogue to help, to help some students, then that'll push us in the right direction.
So we're approaching time, so I think there's a few more, so we'll take those, and then you all don't have to go home, but you got to get out of here. So
This is the last comment from the chat. I feel like you may have organically answered this already, but I still want to ask it. Jayla Sean asks, can we organize and mobilize mutual aid around this issue? How do we bring those suffering out into the open?
Yeah, I think that's a very good ending question, and I do believe that I've touched on that, but just to recap, I think researchers need to deliver information that strikes to the heart of the issue more, and that instead of just trying to shape thoughts and cognitions, we need to shape hearts and empathy. I also think that people of conscience need to organize together. The largest union in the United States is the teachers' union, National Education Association. And I've worked with them. I spoke at one of their events just a weekend ago. And I know that their heart is in the right place too. And so, all of us have to, think about how we can organize and to really be strategic in changing these systems that we know aren't serving our students the way that they need to.
Okay. So with that, give them another round, y'all. Thank you so much. And most importantly,
thank you all online too.
Thank you all online. Thank you. Give a round of applause to yourselves for coming out, braving the weather. Thank you so much. Drive safely. Thank you, scholars, for engaging, coming out in person. Thank you for so many educators across the nation that are online. So, and want to shout out to the MCC staff, our dean, Lane Community College, Randy, who always does a great job. Randy, our tech. Yeah, so thank you all, of course, my lovely family for coming, and peace and hair grease. I'm a holler. All right.